Right, let's get to our next subject. Small matter of millions of children missing school today as huge numbers of teachers from the National Education Union are going on strike. This is an ongoing strike over pay, but the union, National Education Union, has got a strike across England today. Children, including those doing GCSEs and A-levels, starting in just a matter of a couple of weeks, being days off school. Let's talk to Niamh Sweeny, who's Deputy General Secretary of the National Education Union, who kindly joins us now. Good morning to you, Niamh.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. There'll be an awful lot of parents who are going to struggle today, worried about their children missing out on vital learning. They know that if they took their kids out of school for a day, they'd get fined 60 quid. But the kids are out of school for a day. Many of them, primary school age children, parents having to find childcare or missing a day's work, possibly a day's pay, so that teachers can give their pay. Are your strikes actually achieving anything?
Well, we've taken strike action and we had negotiations with the government. They came up with an offer that was put to our members, and 98% of National Education Union members said that that offer wasn't enough.
Wasn't it 98% of those who voted?
Those who voted, yeah. So nearly 200,000 members of the union voted in that 6-day ballot. What is really important is that ASCL and NAHT also rejected that offer from the government. We want to get back round the table. Whilst the negotiations were going on, figures were published to say that teacher vacancies are up 93% on pre-pandemic figures. And so parents will know that their children in primary schools are having difficulty recruiting teachers. They'll have several, temporary teachers in a class rather than a permanent teacher. And secondary school teachers are like gold dust. So schools not being able to recruit DT teachers, dance teachers, music teachers, geography leads, RE teachers. And secondary head teachers are telling us that a quarter of them have already had to make cuts to GCSE and A-level subjects because of lack of flexibility in their school budgets. So parents know that this government hasn't invested enough in their child's education, and they know that that's having a huge impact on the recruitment and retention of teachers in the profession.
Okay.
And every child deserves to have a qualified teacher teaching them.
They absolutely do. It's a shame that the National Education Union all the time, but actually so often in cases where you've got hopeless teachers, you can't do a good job for the kids. You're quite happy to protect them and try and keep them in the job, which worries me. But school budgets, no doubt at all, school budgets have gone up. However, per pupil funding has gone down. That is a simple matter of fact. Is this all about the money, though? We're often told that one of the reasons teachers are leaving, it's about discipline in schools, particularly it is about the workload, the issue of the tick box exercising rather than be able to exercise their own judgment and do the actual imparting of knowledge. Old-fashioned ideas like that in schools. Is it more about the money, or is it more about what is actually going on in schools?
It's both. Teachers are reporting increasing workload, and that is related to funding. It's related to pay. When they calculate their hourly rate, they're working more unpaid overtime. Early career teachers are earning minimum wage levels. Their pay has decreased in real terms in the last 10 years. Workload has increased because we are working in some of the largest class sizes in Europe. Secondary school classes, the largest that they have ever been, and that is related to a recruitment and retention crisis. When you lose dedicated, experienced teachers in a school, it makes workload greater for those new professionals in the schools that are already there. So we have been talking to the government about all of those things, but the pay and graduate pay, teacher pay, has not kept up with other professions. And so the graduate market is booming for jobs at the moment, and new graduates are not choosing to come in to education. And that is a real crisis point for the Secretary of State to deal with.
There is a crisis point. And I think we know, according to the polling, an awful lot of people have a lot of sympathy, particularly with their teachers generally and those who are parents with the individual teachers who are on strike. However, a lot of us have a lot less sympathy with the leadership of your union, and other unions don't necessarily share a lot of the militant views of the leadership of your union. Kevin Courtney, the co-general secretary, along with Mary Bowstead, has endorsed endorsed a new book, Lessons in Organising, What Trade Unionists Can Learn from the War on Teachers. I mean, the war on teachers being an interesting phrase. They called it an excellent review of the attack on teachers and on their unions. And in this book, it's talking about how the current strikes aren't just about pay, but rather about what they call the labour movement that needs to engage in its own war of position to build working class power by acting industrially and politically, organising at the workplace, also in political and civil society, arguing that workers must wage a sustained political struggle in order to change the wider context. And talks about the fundamentally antagonistic relationship between employer and employee, and that capitalism oppresses and exploits workers in and out of the workplace. I mean, is the National Education Union run by Karl Marx or Friedrich Engels, or is it run by Bousted and Courtney? A lot of parents listening to that will say, is the union actually acting in the best interests of teachers and ultimately pupils? Or are you all about some sort of Marxist, hard left, militant struggle against a Tory government that you don't like?
Well, the job of a trade union, we're a democratic organisation. Our policies and our strategies are agreed democratically by our members and then put in place by a lay leadership and the joint general secretaries. If it is militant and Marxist to want children to be able to have a qualified teacher in their subject, teaching them, if it is militant to say that children with special educational needs and disabilities should have access to language support, to physical therapy, to mental health
That's not the point. That's not the point I'm making. We can all agree on that. But if the NEU is fundamentally not only, or maybe not at all, is not about the teachers and about the pupils, if you actually genuinely, as your union leader, think that there's a fundamentally antagonistic relationship between employer and employee and that capitalism oppresses and exploits workers, I mean, you know, that is not the basis for any negotiation with the government. That's a Marxist diatribe. That's not Labour representation.
Endorsing a book, you know, the trade union movement, the National Education Union is organising to ensure that teachers are rewarded for the work that they do. Now, this government
are teachers oppressed? Are teachers working in state schools in this country, or indeed private schools, are they oppressed and exploited?
They are over-controlled. They are held accountable for every decision that they make. They are observed.
Held accountable? How outrageous! That's probably bullying.
No, absolutely not, Julia. Our teachers are saying to us that they are at breaking point, and that is having an impact on children and young people's education. Our Ofsted system, our accountability system, is an outlier in the world. It drives people out of the profession. It doesn't improve schools' ability to support children and young people.
No, there's no doubt at all. We need to have better teacher recruitment, better teacher retention. Is that going to be helped by teaching unions talking about how capitalism oppresses an antagonist relationship between, you know, the head teacher or the Department for Education, Education Secretary and the teacher, and telling everyone how awful it is being a teacher? You come on the telly and the radio saying, this is a terrible job, everyone's miserable, we're being exploited.
Absolutely not, Julia.
Life is awful. Why on earth would anyone listening to this go, oh, I think I'll go and be a teacher?
It is absolutely the best job in the world. But if you do not fund it, if you have teachers teaching in buildings that haven't been repaired for 40 years, if you have teachers teaching in class sizes that are the largest in Europe, or you're having children being taught chemistry by someone who is not qualified in that
that's an issue.
It makes it extremely...
Can I just say that there are teachers working in some of the poorest schools in the poorest areas in China who have class sizes double what we have, and they are delivering some fantastic results. In terms of what sort of salary would be enough to recruit and retain the good teachers that we want to have? Because a newly qualified teacher currently earns around £30,000 a year. I mean, I was a damn sight more than the £9,000 I was on my local paper some years ago. It would have been equivalent of £15,000 now. What sort of salary should we be paying teachers?
Teachers have lost, in real terms, between 11 and 23% in wages.
So what should a teacher's starting salary be to get more teachers recruited?
We agree with the government that what they are doing to increase starting salary for teachers is a good move, but it isn't attracting enough new graduates into the profession.
So what should it be?
Well, they need to look across the board to look at that. That isn't the job of the trade union. We want to negotiate with the government. We want to sit around the table with.
You want to negotiate with the government? Your co-general secretary Kevin Courtney has endorsed a book saying that rapprochement is a dead end. It's the approach that dominated trade unionism in the UK for 40 years and which has delivered little.
Gillian, I read many books that I think are good. Sorry, it doesn't mean that, that I'm going to implement all of them.
And you do endorse them? No, he's endorsed this book.
He said it's a good read.
It's an excellent... He's called it an excellent review of the attack on teachers and their unions.
Yes,
by authors well placed to point to ways to improve the fight back and resistance. We've got a teachers' union leader talking about a fight back and resistance.
Julie, maybe you need to talk to Kevin about the book that he's read.
Will you tell him to come on the show? He never comes on.
Well, maybe you need to talk to him about that.
Well, would you mind putting a word in?
I'll have a word.
Niamh, I really appreciate you coming on, though. Thank you very much indeed. Niamh Sweeny, Deputy General Secretary of the National Education Union.